I accidentally took a picture instead of recording for a little bit. So now I gotta catch up. My new shifter did come in. Nice billet unit. This is a knockoff of the K-Tune shifter. The K-Tune shifter is really expensive. About like $450, $500. It's just $150 eBay knockoff, which is fine for me because I have to modify it since I'm not using it as a cable shifter. But the biggest thing is, and I liked it, I wanted to change because here on the back, it's completely open, and the issue I've been having with the plastic shifter is it's not open on the back. And so I tried to trim as much as I could out and still not completely cut the supports out because it's not strong enough, it's plastic. But the problem is I've got mechanical linkage instead of cables, and so this one has to swing back and forth. It's the one that goes in and out, but it has to swing back and forth with the shifter as it moves the pivot to get this one, and it keeps knocking on the pillars there. So by having one that's completely open in the back, I won't have that issue anymore. So, but it's got a little bit bigger base. I planned on getting rid of the two bars that were here. They actually used to come all the way back. I'd already gotten rid of half of them. Now I got rid of the rest of them. I'm just gonna build my own for my console. Ground off where it was welded on, and now I'm getting this mounted where it needs to go. So right there, I'm gonna drill some holes in the end of the frame here, and then on the back I'll have to add an extra bar right here. It's all moving up just a little bit from where the old one was. So yeah, I'm gonna get this hole drilled and tapped, and then get another piece of metal cut and set down in here, and then I'll bolt it to this piece, and then I'll drill and tap it, and this is going to be mounted, and then I got to worry about getting the linkage hooked up to it. That's going to be a little bit different too. Got the shifter mounted up. Turns out I tried to drill and tap the frame rails. I've done that before, and it's fine, I guess, for holding a ground screw or a little bracket. But for the shifter, putting weight on it, it didn't work. When I tried to shift, it pulled through. So I actually had to drill it out and put some rib nuts in. So there's 4 rib nuts holding it in. I caught the cross brace here. And then back here, it's hard to see, but I added an extra piece of square tubing. There's a bolt through it into this one holding it there, so that gives it stability when you're back and forth. So this is way better for me than what I had before, because as you can see, there's nothing back here to interfere with my linkage, so I can go through all my gears and I don't have any issues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, reverse. So much better. Now I gotta get a shift knob so that I can quit shifting with the threads. But very happy with it. Not a bad afternoon's work. About 2.5 hours to get this all installed. I had to machine this little piece down here. I still got to clean it up. It's pretty ugly. It's just a hunk of aluminum I cut off and drilled 2 holes in. So maybe I'll get a view of that when I take it apart to clean it up. I gotta powder coat the brace down here in the bottom, and I got to clean this aluminum bit up, and then I got to decide if I'm going to leave the shifter in billet or if I'm going to powder coat it. I'm not really a shiny, blingy kind of guy. I've done almost everything black. I don't know if I want to do this black though. I might try and find some kind of accent color. I could certainly do the copper like I did on the intake manifold. That might look real good. And I also don't know how much of the shifter I'm going to leave exposed and how much of it's going to get covered by a console. So I'm still trying to think about that. Also going to decide if I want to try and cut some of that nose off. I don't need all of that nose. That's for holding the cables when you do cable shifts. So I might come cut it off right in front of this triangle here and shorten the nose up, and that'll give me more room for stuff in my console. Alright, so I thought long and hard about the shifter, and I'm really happy with the way it fits, the way it shifts. It solved all the problems that the old shifter was having. The problem is I'm not sure, well, I know for a fact it doesn't aesthetically fit with what I'm doing in the car. I don't have any chrome or billet exposed anywhere. Now there's a possibility that this is going to wind up under a console and under a boot and be completely invisible. But I am thinking about trying to find a way to make the billet or make the shifter exposed and the linkage exposed for a bit of coolness. And if that happens, I'm not happy with the way that looks. So I've done some sketches, I've made some drawings, done some coloring, and I've decided I'm going to powder coat it, which means I've got to disassemble it. So I'm going to video that. I'm not going to do the time lapse for two reasons. One is this may come in handy to somebody else down the road if they try to disassemble this. And secondly, it'll serve as a real good document for me to when I go to put it back together. Hopefully I won't have I can figure out how it goes back together and I won't have forgotten anything. So I'm going to start. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the base. Now traditionally it's held on by 4 hex heads, but I've already moved it out where I've only got 2 attached to the base. That's because of how it fits in the car. I was trying to get it to sit further forwards. So this piece I've already had off a couple of times for testing purposes. So we'll pull those aside. And that's it for the base. It's held on with 2 or 4 screws depending on how you've got it set up. So I can set that aside and then move on to the actual shifter mechanism. So it's clear there's 2 big rails which are held by, looks like 4 sets of cross rails, and then this piece of linkage here is obviously the most complex thing to work out. There's a spring that goes around that pin right there, and it looks like you can remove that pin and pull it out so you don't have to try and muscle the spring in, which is really nice. So I am going to go ahead and pull that first. Hopefully I've got the right size tool here. It's not one of the ones I brought. Maybe one of these a little bit bigger than that. Must be metric. There we go. So it's obviously got a mix of standard and metrics on here. I'll link the brand of shifter this is. Like I said, it's a K-tuned knockoff. Bought it on eBay for less than or about the third the price of a real K-tune. Like I said, obviously a mix of metric and standard bolts. That's a little interesting. I think I'm going to grab a Ziploc bag and a Sharpie so that I can mark what all these screws are, since I know they're different sizes. Okay, Google. Resume. So I'm going to call this the spring cam. I don't know what else to call it. Chew up a lot of bags doing this, but I save myself a lot of guesswork when I got to put it back together. And I'll put the spring in that bag as well. Others were for the base. Alright, so we got a little spring cam off, and let's see what's going to have to come off next to get the spring out. Looks like if I pull this one, this whole assembly should come loose. So we're going to try that next. Yeah, that's spinning on me, so I can see there's a flat spot on that shaft. I'm going to have to try and find a wrench that fits down in there. Just take a look at it and guess what it might be. Maybe a 9/16 or a 5/8. I think that's too big. That should be a 1/2 inch. Or maybe a 13mm, who knows. Problem is getting spring out of the way so you can get on it. You have to have something thinner to get down in there. Got something thinner. Yeah, 7/16 is real skinny, but I have a feeling that's going to be too small. Yep, it's definitely a 1/2 inch. See if a 13 will fit down in there. Might have it. Let's see. Nope. 14 not have it because the 14's too small, or because I couldn't get past the spring. Feels like it's crap. See if I got a 15 that'll fit. There we go. That 15's on there. 15 millimeter. Alright, the bag, the label. So it looks like this little bushing here is held inside this housing. It's really nice that it's not free floating, but I got to take that out to powder coat. Don't want to put that in the oven. I've also got some concerns about clearances if I powder coat this, so probably going to try and tape off surfaces that mate together but won't be visible, such as the surface right in there. Although it'll be a little difficult to tape off a perfect line, so I may tape off one side and not the other and see how the clearance comes out. Or, better yet, screw them back together before I powder coat it. And that way, powder doesn't get inside that sealing surface. And we'll get some powder coat on my screws, but I've actually been thinking about powder coating them anyway. Taping off the threads and powder coating the heads, although that probably make them hard to, at least the small ones, probably make it almost impossible to screw and unscrew. Bigger ones probably got enough clearance to survive. That piece aside. Let's see, where did the spring can go? Put the spring down in there. This bushing. Definitely don't want to lose that. Shifter would be no good without it. Alright, let's see what's next. Looks like I can take the two big sides off now. So I think the other thing I didn't talk about was that I'm probably going to trim this as well. All this out here is for holding the shift cables, but I'm not using shift cables, so I don't need all of that. So I'll look at removing it. Oh, very nice, that actually threads into there. That is almost completely hidden, and it's going to be behind a silver spring, so I am not going to bother powder coating that. Because I'm not powder coating the spring. One piece of the frame. Another piece should come right off. I guess I need to pull these small ones here. This whole thing comes apart, if it even does. There's bearings in there. Take a look. I think that's just an adjustable stop. Just a little pressure. Pops right off. Very good. This pin screw in. Is it pressed in? Ah, set screws. See them right there. Kind of a pain to get to. So as a note to myself, when I go to put this back together, if the 3 set screws for the shaft are facing you, the pin sticks out to the right. It's got nice little grooves in it for the set screws to set in. I don't know if these bearings can be powder coated or not. I'll do a little quick Google search and see. I'm suspecting that I would rather not powder coat the bearings. There we go. But I really want this piece powder coated. I don't really want to be dealing with pressing a bearing though, so do a little research and see if it's okay to powder coat a bearing. And then I've got to clean up. There's another piece of road here somewhere. Here it is. This is the piece that I made that actually catches the bottom of the lever. So there, that's threaded, so your shifter sticks up like this, and so that's threaded, and so this bolts through there, and then the heim joint on the shift linkage comes in here. So I've got to clean this up. It's, like I said, it was a piece of scrap, so I've got to grind these divots out and get it looking good. So go to a time lapse to do that.